Hey everyone, just wanted to get everybody all caught up. It's been a couple of weeks since I have done a vlog post. I wasn't really sure how long we'd be waiting around for this little guy, Edison, to be joining our family. So I was kind of holding out to do my third trimester video because I didn't know how long I was going to be in third trimester for. So I'm going to get us all caught up with third trimester, and then I will have another video shortly about our labor and delivery story as well. So third trimester, I was starting to have a little bit of discomfort starting at about 28 weeks or so. I had a little bit of back and abdominal pain and some pelvic pressure that I hadn't experienced yet. Rolling over got continuously harder and harder, so laying in bed having to roll over and change positions got a little bit tough, and putting on my boots was like the workout of the day. I also had a little bit of like prenatal anxiety. When we went to Miami, I had a little bit of a freak out. We went to a conference, and just for some reason with the number of people and going to this conference that encourages you to do more and reach your highest potential, while I was mentally trying to prepare to do less to take care of this little guy, just kind of sent me a little crazy. I also was reading a book, and I'd been so busy back home that I hadn't really had a chance to really think about all the things that I had going through my head and everything that I was potentially having fears or anxieties about upcoming to become a mom. So I was reading Rachel Hollis's Girl Wash Your Face, and on one page she talked about all the different things that I had going through my head that I hadn't really had a chance to think about, like am I going to be a good mom? Can I do this? What's everything going to look like? Like all the potential things that, like, am I gonna be able to feed him? Am I going to feed him enough? Am I going to drop him? Is there just all the different potential things? Like, am I going to be able to keep up all the other responsibilities and stuff that I have to do? So that was a bit of a challenge. But then on the next page of her book, she laid out a to-do list of what a new mom is supposed to do, and it just said, take care of the baby and take care of yourself. And so through going through that book, I bawled my eyes out on the beach in Miami after I decided to no longer attend that conference because it was just too much for me that weekend. I had a little bit of a cry sesh on the beach, and then kind of, I guess, worked through the rest of the weekend resolving some of those things that I didn't even realize were a problem for me. So really, since then, I hadn't really had any other issues with fear or anxiety with everything coming up, and was pretty calm actually for the rest of the time. A little like so calm that I stressed myself out a little bit, because I'm like, okay, like, I'm having a baby, I should be stressing out a little bit or something. I really didn't. Everything just kind of fell into place and has been going pretty well since then. I did also have a little bit of worry about baby blues and postpartum depression as well. And so I had been listening to a podcast called the Doing It at Home podcast, DIAH, because we were planning our home birth, as you guys know. And so listening to that podcast, I learned a ton about all the different things that could happen. So all the different ways that a home birth could go, what happens if you have to transfer in, and just anything that could possibly happen, the good, the bad, and everything in between. And so every time I listened to an episode of that, I just felt a little bit more empowered and not necessarily in control, but ready for whatever it was that was going to happen, and just being open to whatever had to happen to keep us both safe, if we had to transfer in, or if I, like, working through whether or not I felt like I could do it, because listening to all these stories of all these women, just kind of, I was like, okay, you know what, like, people have been doing this for years and years and years. Women are meant to do this. I can do it too. And so on the podcast, I had heard about placental encapsulation and what that can do for helping to prevent with baby blues and postpartum depression, because when you give birth and deliver your placenta, you all of a sudden don't have any of those hormones anymore. They're all just kind of gone. And so with placenta encapsulation, they encapsulate your placenta into these little capsules that you take afterwards, and so that just helps to give you a little bit of a dose of those hormones to help balance out your emotions and kind of keep things a little bit more what was your normal when you were pregnant. So you have a little bit more help as far as all of that goes. With the podcast, there was a bunch of other things that it helped me with as well. I did get some clients, family, friends that weren't super on board with the whole home birth situation. There were many stories, usually negative ones, that people bring up about, oh, well, I know this person that this happened to, and well, this could happen, and this could happen, and this could happen. And that was a little bit of a challenge because I was obviously looking for some support, but it got to the point after listening to the podcast for long enough and having a few key people in my corner that it didn't really bother me so much anymore. I got to the point where I stopped telling people for a while because it did bother me for a couple of months, and then I just was like, okay, you know what, I really don't care what anybody else thinks. I know what the risks are. I know that the midwives are prepared to handle whatever it is that they need to, and we can transfer in whenever necessary. You don't usually transfer when it's an emergency situation. You usually transfer long before that, and I was fully confident in my midwives and my team that everything would be fine, that eventually it just kind of didn't even faze me at all what everybody was saying, and I just knew that it was the right choice for me. So that being said, we just kind of moved through everything. I had started to develop some more changes. Like I was feeling like things were moving along a little bit more. At about 34 weeks, I lost what I believe was some of my mucus plug, which I was like, whoa, okay, that seems a little bit early for that to be happening. We're not really ready to be delivering. So I did some reading and learned that you can lose your mucus plug and then have it grow back a couple of times. So I was like, okay, well, that doesn't necessarily mean that delivery is imminent. So that was at about 34 weeks at that time. That's kind of about when my feet and ankles really started to swell up if I was up on them for too long as well. So I just had to be careful being up on my feet at work and make sure I took lots of little breaks so that I could get through the rest of the day. My belly started to drop at about 35 weeks, and everybody who saw me at work or otherwise told me that it looked a little bit lower and lower and lower every time they saw me. So the dropping was actually nice for some things. It made it so I could eat a little bit more, created a little bit more space up here for me. And eliminated the heartburn, made it a little bit easier to breathe, which was great. But at the same time, it also increased my pelvic pressure like crazy because Mr. Edison's head was dropping lower and lower, and it kind of felt like it was grinding down, trying to get out. So I had a little bit of bone pain and pubic symphysis pain at the front of my pelvis that was affecting things quite a bit. So I just had to be careful with the level of stuff that I was doing. At about 36 weeks, I started having some cramping, so kind of just like really bad period pains intermittently. I lost what I believe to be some more mucus plug that week, and I also saw my osteopath, and she said based on how my body felt and how everything was healing, she didn't think it would be too much longer at that point. I also saw my midwife the next day after my osteopath appointment, and she realized how low everything was healing as well. And then I saw her a couple of days later again at my 37-week appointment, and I was lower even then still. So she agreed that it probably wouldn't be too long. So to just kind of be ready for whenever things were going to happen. I also had a couple of friends who all delivered relatively early, between 37 and 38 weeks. So I was like, okay, I got to make sure I'm ready. Though it tends to be the trend that first babies go a little bit late, but the trend around me had been 37 weeks, so I just wanted to make sure that I was good and ready. I basically took my 37th week off work, just started to kind of get some things done at home. I did go in for a few hours here and there, but started to really nest and get everything ready at home. At 30, on like the day that I was 37 weeks, I went to bed and I had consistent cramping, like every 10 minutes pretty strongly for about 90 minutes or so, and laying there I swore I was going to have the baby that night, but within an hour and a half it kind of went away, and then I had intermittent cramping a little bit the next couple of days, but nothing too crazy. I had a little bit of nightly cramping, but again, nothing too consistent. And when I learned also that when people say soon, it can be anywhere from a couple of days, a couple hours from then to a couple of weeks. So I was like, okay, like, is this going to happen soon? Is it not? I wasn't really sure. It was a weird kind of space to be in, but I was able to get lots done, which I wasn't sure I was going to be able to. That week I was a little bit on edge, just kind of wondering when things were going to happen. That week, that 37th week, about halfway through, I weighed myself for the last time before I had this guy, and I was up to 160 pounds, so that was a 45-pound weight gain for me, which was quite a bit. I had never seen the scale go quite that high before, and so I was like, whoa, like, this baby's not going to weigh that much, like, I don't really understand where all this is coming from, but either way, I was okay with it. Things were going pretty well, and I was realizing how swollen I was, so I figured that was a big contributing factor as well. On the Friday of that week, so I was like 37 and 3, I lost more mucus plug, and then the following day, the Saturday, I lost what I believed to be the rest of it, because I was like, there can't possibly be any more in there. And so the next day, the Sunday, I had cramping again every 10 to 12 minutes for about 90 minutes, but again, that just went away. So I was like, okay, like, I wonder when this is going to happen. On the Monday, so that's April 1st, 37 weeks and 6 days, I had gotten so much done at home that I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll go into work for a few hours, because this doesn't really seem to be happening anytime soon. And I had an osteopath appointment that afternoon as well, so I went in and just visited and got a couple of things done. I didn't really have anything left to do at home, so I figured, hey, like, what the heck, I might as well go in and see some people. After that, I went to my osteopath. I had an osteopath appointment. She was working on some trigger points and stuff on my feet, some acupressure, because everybody kind of thought, like, okay, like, this is going to happen soon. And then she felt my belly, and then she did a cranial adjustment on my head, and said that my skull bones were a little bit out of alignment, and that could be affecting the hormone communication from my brain to everything else. And then after she did the adjustments on my head, she came back down to my feet and my belly, and my belly felt very different after she had done the adjustments on my head. It just kind of felt like everything was a little bit more awake, and I had some light contractions on the table, and then I stood up from the table, and I took a couple of steps, and my water broke. And so that's basically the end of my third trimester. It was really the best that it could have been. My energy level was pretty good. I was feeling a lot better. I wasn't sick so much anymore. I had a little bit of the swelling and stuff, but it was definitely, I felt the best that I had so far through the whole pregnancy, so that was a nice kind of way to finish everything out, and I was able to get everything ready and be prepared like I wanted to be, so that was all great. So if you want to follow along and check out more of our story, our next one will be our labor and delivery story. Subscribe to my channel, and you can follow along with what's going on in our life. I'll be doing lots more videos in the coming weeks and months, so I'd love to have you follow along. Hope everybody's having a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.